מה קורה? מה העניינים? מה נשמע? ברוכים הבאים, ברוכים השבים. אני מלארקינג, והיום אנחנו משחקים אוטופסי סימולטור. בתקווה שאף אחד לא יקום עלינו ולא יביל אותנו. יש לי לב חלש. טוב. יהיה לימודי. אמרתי, אל תתקשר אליי יותר. זה לא הביזנס שלי. אמרת? כל הזמן הוא מתקשר. אין לי מושג איך.
Feeling completely broken.
Hi, this is Anna Burrows, a reporter for the New Orleans Weekly. Mess I couldn't find you at home. You're not there. I'm beginning to suspect that you're avoiding me, Mr. Hammond. Anyway, as you know, we'd like to write a piece commemorating your wife's son and the WA achievements. We'd be delighted to talk to you about it. Along with this note, I will also leave you my card. Let me call you this evening, and I hope to see you at home or at the office. Regards, A. Burrows.
פה. וואו, צריך לשמן את המגירות האלה. וואו, פאק. כל ככה? טוב, אין פה כלום.
It's for my guests, but they seem to never drink or say anything when they visit me. Oh, I'm gonna go nuts if I don't take my pills.
כדורים. To break out. Just remember.
Oh shit. It's only Thursday.
רוצים?
Fuck. Where are my meds?
הנה, תרגע. הנה. מטריקס? דברים מדומים? מטריקס? צרצר שיניים, לא? אוקיי. סטורג'.
Now we can go get the camera.
wet paint.
It's locked.
מה זה?
It's locked. It's locked. It's locked. It's locked. It's locked. It's locked.
אוקיי, זה נעול כנראה? סטורג'.
This place is starting to look like a garbage dump rather than a storage room.
הנה כאן. מצלמה.
Well, I hope I won't forget to... Let's move on straight to our deceased.
Let's move on. אבל נמשיך. שלום. מה שלומך? ברוכים הבאים. אל תקום.
Just frame it properly and... Oh, this should be fine. November 21st, 1991.
Files.
Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. The autopsy is conducted by Jack Hammond.
I need Jack.
It is always worth having a look at the files before conducting the autopsy. That is where we can find all kinds of clues to what could have... Well, who do we have here to mention the rookie mistakes? Oh yeah, that's right. That's my warrant to sensify you for a few issues. First, due to the fact that in the process of revealing and securing forensic traces, interference that changes the primary condition happens. The photographic documentation plays a huge role in the entire process of examination. Then, the body needs to be placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathomorphologist stands on the left-hand side of the body. Third, very rarely but still, the cause of death remains unknown if all the tests come out negative. That's the so-called white autopsy. Now remember that it can also happen.
כן, ואם הוא יקום עליי, אז מה?
Found on the outskirts of a parking lot near a gas station, where he often begged and insistently offered to clean the windows of cars that were leaving the station. The body was found in a dry field drain. A frequent cause of traumatic deaths among the elderly is the various types of accidents, including traffic accidents or falling down the stairs. The body was spotted by a station worker during the morning shift. At first, he thought that someone had thrown rain boots and a coat in a nearby ditch. It took him a moment to recognize a human body laying on its back. Signs of libation could be found around the dead body. Empty bottles, traces of an inept attempt to start a fire, and a scattered makeshift blanket. The deceased is locally known as Old Toby, homeless and unemployed for at least a couple years. He had gotten into fights and had been bullied by the problematic youth of the town. He was that type of a man who never kept up alcohol, which caused him to be homeless. As a young man working in a suburban coal mine most of his life, he already abused alcohol, and as the time went by, he'd fall into addiction more. That's interesting. Although alcohol poisoning as a sole cause of death among the elderly people is relatively rare, different levels of alcohol poisoning happen among 1 in 4 deaths of elderly people, which may suggest that alcohol abuse is a significant issue in this age group. What is important to note, even though alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injuries. The body was found at 7 o'clock by Sheriff Matthew Thompson. White male, 76 kilograms, 5'8", age unknown. The deceased is a local homeless man named Toby Chambers. His son runs a hardware store. His wife ran away years ago. Local police have talked to residents, so we know more about the deceased. For example, that he loved drinking, and by no means was abstinent. Such clues can direct us to things that are worth keeping in mind during the autopsy. Found on the deceased is the body was
וואו, זה המון מידע.
Mentioned the rookie mistakes.
טוב, אול טובי.
Where the damn
אני מצטער על מה שקרה לך. פג לכפפות. תכף אנחנו נתחיל. אל תקום. אל תקום.
Now we can get to work. We're going to need the camera. It should be here somewhere.
מצלמה, מצלמה. הנה מצלמה. קוקו.
Must have left it in one of the drawers.
אוקיי, בוא נתחיל.
Let's follow the procedure and prepare photo documentation. We must follow the top-down rule. Luckily, we don't have to take pictures. Voila! Now we move on to the next step. Trace search.
Nice.
We're going to need better zoom here. People affected by homelessness most often die from accidents, alcohol abuse. We're going to need better zoom here.
יאללה, בוא נתחיל לחתוך. שעוד פה? עוד שני אולי? אל תקום! מה קרה לך על היד?
Well, you don't have to stand close to be able to smell a strong odor of alcohol.
טובי, הבאת לנו עוד?
Discharges. There's nothing left to say.
אוף.
While taking the photos, some entries that could be potentially lethal caught my attention. Let's take a closer look using the magnifying glass.
Magnify. Okay.
By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have been uncomfortable in dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death.
לא גזר ציפורניים.
There are frostbite marks all over the deceased's body. Although they are most visible on the tips of his fingers, they can be recognized by the very specific color of the skin. However, the hands tell us much more. That's something interesting. While making photographic documentation, ecchymosis can be seen on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. We'll come back later to see if everything is alright with the brain.
טובי, פה פוצצו לך את הראש.
An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. What do we have here? By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. The condition of the head tells us it could have been a fake. It could be freezing to death. Yeah. An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Now, at this point, that's all I can do based on all traces on the... Now let's check the level of muscle tension.
Toby.
This will allow us to establish time of death.
אני בודק אם אתה מת.
Deceased's hand. That's too high. 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 That's too high.
אוקיי.
And then let go. The stronger the rigor mortis gets, the greater the resistance.
המסקנה, טובי מת.
As you can see, the hand falls loose. The
טובי,
rigor
לא
mortis
יקום.
has already subsided. We can then assume that the time of death stated in the files is correct. Let's grab a scalpel. You can both the scalpel. It won't hurt him no more. We almost
Why?
next.
Boom, 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 boom.
Prepare to remove the ribs.
פיקאבו. אופ. למה זה נסגר? אופ. לא. אופ.
The adipose tissue has an intense yellow hue. As you probably already guessed, we're going to need the scissors.
Yeah. צליל.
After removing both cartilage and bone tissues, we are actually interested in two things that you can see at the very first glance. The lack of organ congestion means that, although the deceased was cold, hypothermia wasn't the cause of death.
נראה פה.
We can eliminate freezing as the cause of death.
עכבר.
Although alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injuries. The deceased smoked like a chimney. Let's take a closer look. We see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death. Now we need to go grab the syringe. I don't need this tool now. At this point, we need to test the blood alcohol concentration of the deceased. We also collect the fluid from the deceased to determine the level of alcohol concentration in the vitreous humor. Now, we prick the bladder and draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. We move on to collecting blood from the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it. Keep in mind that you have to set the right time and speed on both knobs before using the centrifuge. Our samples may break into pieces due to the centrifugal force if we set up the wrong coordinates. I myself am terrible with numbers because I suffer from dyscalculia, which is why I always keep the appropriate coordinates at hand.
ריבורד. 40 דקות, 75%. דקות 40 ו-75%. לא, 40 דקות נחכה עכשיו? לא, טובי אל תקום. טובי.
Damn it. If something goes to shit, it's on the way. That's probably the blown fuses again.
אל תקום, טובי. אל תלחץ, הכל בסדר. לא קרה כלום, טובי. אל תקום.
I was hoping to clock out early today.
What the fuck was that? מה זה היה? איפה הפנס שלי? חתול. איפה אתה? טובי, אל תקום, אני כבר בא.
Yeah, it's definitely the fuses. Right goes first, left next. Voila.
Boom.
Where's that unbearable noise coming from?
Okay. Ha!
That's strange. I'm pretty sure I closed the window.
החתול הזה בטח. Stay out.
The homeless probably misses me already.
טובי, אני בא. אל תקום, טובי.
It's locked.
It's locked?
It's locked. It's locked. It's locked.
טובי. חזרתי, טובי.
Right. Let's see what we... Where were we? Oh yeah, the blood out. Well, everything is telling us that the BAC, blood alcohol concentration, is high. Hence the smell we're getting from the deceased. Still, to be 100% sure, I have to send the samples to the lab. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment to conduct a detailed analysis here.
שלח את זה. היי, צריך לבדוק את הבטן. לבדוק את הבטן.
Now let's take a closer look at the stomach.
הסטמק שלך? הנה. וואו, טובי, אחלה סטמק. אחלה בטן. וואו. אני צריך לבדוק.
As expected, the stomach has no major external damage. In this case, further inspection is no use. We must cut him open.
רעש. טובי, אל תקום, טובי. אני חותך את הבטן וכבר מחזיר. תדאג.
That's interesting. In addition to a large amount of gas and liquid, the stomach also contains small amounts of yellow-grayish food content resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days, or some of the bulk of his stomach had found a way out. Oh, it couldn't have been suffocation, could it? Now we need to focus on the cardiovascular system, especially the heart. We take the organ and look it up and down. Careful. Could that be suffocation?
הארט. זה לא הארט. אוקיי, הנה הלב.
At first glance, the heart looks fine. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that have contributed to our Toby's death. Well, once we've got the body ticked off, we can move on to the head.
אוי, לא. טובי, אני צריך לפתוח את הראש.
Let's take the autopsy saw to cut through the skull to cleave it in two. Remember, the skull, not the skull. Anyway, we will start dissecting the brain from the occipital. In this way, the brain's dura mater is slowly revealing itself. After the basic examination, we can see that the cerebral gyri in both brain hemispheres are symmetric, and the so far so good. Holding a knife with a long, narrow blade in your dominant hand, cut the cranial nerves on both sides, pulling the brain towards you.
איזה עקום אני?
Remember, just one small fragment examined under the magnifying glass is enough to dispel or confirm our doubts. We then take the fragment of the brain to the tray, and, just as I initially suspected, we can rule the fatal accident out as well. I don't need this tool now.
וואו, זוועתי.
Same as we did with the stomach.
אוי, לא.
While cutting a small organ, such as the trachea, we
טובי,
must
אנחנו
perform
קסרים לך את
precise
הצורה.
precision. To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the knife as if it was a stylus. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the report and preliminary documentation, it is safe to assume that the deceased passed out after consumption of alcohol and then fell asleep on his back. Then the gastric contents refluxed and flooded the airways, causing death. That's why we don't forget about the recovery position at dorm parties. And now it's all clear. The death was caused by suffocation.
טובי, שתית יותר מדי, טובי. סכנה. לא לשתות. כאילו, מים זה טוב. Go to the general card.
I don't know how it could have worked without this gadget before.
general card.
mention the rookie
איך. גנרל קארד? למה הדלתות פה פתוחות? למה מבולגן פה?
I don't want to disturb the neighbors.
מה?
We'll get to making notes on the board.
אני לא יודע איפה הג'נרל קארד.
It's locked.
אולי פה? דוקיומנטיישן, איפה הם? אני מגיע לזה. עליו?
We now come to the deceased's neck.
אוקיי.
Although alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injury. Although alcohol, in addition to a large amount of gas and liquid, the stomach also contains small amounts of yellow, grayish food content resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days. Although alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injuries.
בוא נחתום. מלאק. ננסה לו חיוך יפה כזה. זה גם פרח.
It went quite smoothly today. I'm about to get off.
Close the chest. בוא נסגור את החזה. הופ.
In order to bring the chest of our deceased back to its initial state, at least to a small extent, we must take the needle in our hand.
Needle.
We sewed the deceased using the baseball stitch technique. The stitching method is very strong and quick to do.
טלפון. ביי טובי.
I should probably get to that. I'm coming. It's locked. It's locked. It's locked. This is Dr. Jack Hanman. Please leave a message.
Good evening. How are you?
What the fuck is this?
What's that supposed to be? I'll finish the stitching and I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Fuck that. אני יוצא מפה, הנה היציאה. סיימתי לתפור אותו, אבל למה אני צריך לחזור?
It's locked.
כן, אני רואה.
It's locked.
טובי!
What the fuck?
מה? איפה טובי? וואו! רציתי לראות את טובי קם. טוב, חברים. זה היה Autopsy Simulator. נחמד מאוד, ממש מגניב, אני מצפה לשחק במשחק המלא. תכתבו לי בתגובות מה דעתכם. איזה עוד משחקים אתם רוצים שאני אשחק? עשו לייק ותירשמו לערוץ שלי. אנחנו נתראה בסרטון הבא. ביי ביי.